Welcome back to our module for our online grant training where we're focusing on evaluation and sustainability. We've talked about quantitative evaluation and also qualitative evaluation. So that means we're on to talking about program sustainability and replicability. When we think about what we are proposing, it is often time limited to our grant makers, many times for a period of 12 months. Or maybe we're really excited because it's multi-year funding, so it's 2, 3, maybe even up to 5 years. That feels like a sustainability, wow, we won the lottery type moment because we know what the continuity is that's going to be in place for our program. We might be learning each year and improving, but we're not thinking in only 12-month chunks and trying to figure out how are we going to sustain from one grant award period to the next. Well, when we think about sustainability of a program, of a project, one of the first things that we really need to ask ourselves, is the project or program supposed to continue? Is it supposed to stay as it is with some modest quality improvements, but is it supposed to stay as it was originally designed, or is it meant to be some type of one-time project? I don't mean one day or only 1 year, but is it meant to be a distinct project that once it's done, will be done? Or is it the type of program that needs to exist for an undisclosed period of time, something like an after-school tutoring program or a health clinic for outreach in communities? Those are the sort of things that you might not expect to be done. But we will see both types of grant programs that organizations are applying for. And so when you think about what your response is to a question related to sustainability, how do you have your program sustaining itself after this grant award period is done? That's what the question often sounds like. Sometimes it's within the evaluation section. Sometimes it's the next question right after in a grant application portal. Don't assume what the grant maker wants to hear. The grant maker certainly doesn't love to hear, hey, we'll be back for another grant after this one's over. That's not usually their favorite answer. But the bigger question that you need to address is, what is the purpose for your project or program, or maybe even for your organization as a whole? What is supposed to happen? What is your ideal? What is your strategy and your vision? Deep thoughts, right? Well, when we think about sustainability, let's assume that the project or program you're thinking about right now is not a one-time deliver and done type project or program. And instead, it's a project or program that in some way will continue. Certainly, there will be continuous improvements made throughout. You'll take what you've learned through qualitative and quantitative evaluation and enhance based on the needs of your target audience or community. Certainly, that could be the case. So what does sustainability sound like in those scenarios? How is it that we discuss that with our grant maker? Well, part of this is really about our grant budget. It's thinking about our grant budgeting basics that we talked about in an earlier module. We need to think about what the revenue is that we're presenting for this specific grant award period that we're proposing. Do we have any other funds? Are they committed? Are they pending? Are we already in a matching grant or a cost share scenario? That lends itself to talking about how we use our other diverse funding sources in order to sustain and maybe even replicate what it is that we're doing now. If, though, you say, oh, nope, we don't have any other funding sources at this time, but we anticipate needing to continue this project or program, that the community need won't shift so significantly that we're no longer needed. If that's the case, what do we say? We know we're going to be needed. We don't have any other funds. We don't know where future funds are coming from. What do we say? In this situation, we don't say something very generic like, we will seek additional grant funds and talk to major donors. That's incredibly generic and leaves a grant maker feeling, well, like they don't have a lot of confidence in the ability of that particular plan coming through as a way to sustain the project or program. So instead, what you should do in such a scenario is that if you think we're going to have to continue the project or program, but we don't know where the funds are coming from, let's talk about our broader plans. Let's talk about the details of our organization's fundraising plan. Maybe where does it fit under our strategic plan? And what are the details of the fundraising plan for how we think about earned or contributed revenue? Are we thinking about special events that designate then to a project or program? Do we have a major gift officer? Do we have a grant calendar? And if so, what type of grants are on it? Do we normally apply for 10 foundation and 5 government grants in order to make up our budget each year? What type of success do we have? What sort of long-term funding relationships do we have? I could go on, but I think you get the point. The more detail that you can provide about your overall fundraising plan will give your grant maker a great deal of additional confidence that, oh, okay, they're gonna do great work, they're gonna evaluate their great work, and then as they think about the next year, here's how they anticipate continuing their work. That's the message that you'll be giving to the grant maker. The conversation about sustainability points right back to our earlier conversations about qualitative and quantitative data and how it is that we're measuring the success and the impact of our project and programs. So what combination, based on what's most appropriate for the program or the project, most appropriate for our capacity, our financial resources, what are we measuring? How will we measure them? How will we report back to our grant makers? The way that we communicate our results will play into our program sustainability if we anticipate a long-term funding relationship with our grant makers. They want to hear, how did you create success? What are the results that you achieved? What were they a part of creating in your community? How will you learn from them again? And how can they be a part of it in the future? So we need to use our evaluation information in order to put forward a strong position for program sustainability if we think that we're going to build those long-term funding partnerships. The other thing for us to consider is with our grant makers. In particular, we see foundations that will say, you can come in and receive a grant, but we're not going to fund you every year. You have to take 2 years off, or we prefer to fund you every other year, or we prefer to fund a distinct project and then maybe take a break. And then when something else comes up again in the future that's a fit, go ahead and reach out again. Funders that have a cycle like that prefer to have a relationship that isn't an every year funding commitment, they will be very interested in how do you grow and change and enhance who you are as an organization and what you deliver over a longer period of time. And so as you're thinking about the way you present your evaluation for a specific project or program, it probably is also advisable to think about giving the context. Here's how we evaluate this project or program, and here is how that fits into our larger process of evaluation as an organization. Here's how we think about what we are able to accomplish internally. What is our capacity for evaluation with our current staff? When do we occasionally use the resources and the skills and expertise of an external evaluator? What do we do for our organization that is process-oriented for evaluation versus outcome-oriented? We might need both. And then those quantitative and qualitative evaluation components, those methodologies, the tools that we're using and what we'll learn, those would be important to highlight if we haven't already. By thinking about our evaluation, our ongoing big picture continuous improvement, what it is that we do to learn about our target audience and what we deliver, so that we can constantly improve the way that we deliver services, projects, programs, That will help a grant maker get excited about coming to you in the future, working with you in the future, and that might be a unique and different way that they think about sustainability for your organization. The sustainability question, well, it might be indeed one of the least favorite questions universally for grant writers and grant professionals everywhere. But I encourage you to think about it in a new light. Think about it as a way to describe your current revenue and your future revenue. Your budget information gives you great clues for what might you say in the sustainability section. The other is to tie that sustainability question to your evaluation narrative, to your evaluation plans. Both your revenue details and your evaluation of your results, your plans for continuous improvement, both influence the sustainability of your project or program. Now, if you have any questions on this particular topic as part of the module, please be sure to reach out. Drop me an email, diane@dhleonardconsulting.com. And I look forward to talking to you in the final section of this module, where we'll be talking about scaling up.